The one who follows. I didn't plan to end up here. I just wanted to walk, clear my head after a brutal day. Office politics, deadlines, my boss screaming. It all pressed against my temples like a vice. I needed silence. Real silence. Not the kind you get in an apartment where you hear neighbors through the walls, but the kind that only exists deep in the forest, far from people. I knew these woods. Used to come here as a teenager with my father. We'd hunt for mushrooms, build campfires, sleep in a tent. Back then, the forest seemed friendly, almost gentle. But that was a long time ago. A very long time. I entered at 3 in the afternoon. The sun still shone brightly, piercing through the canopy in golden shafts. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. I followed the trail, enjoying the peace, feeling the tension slowly release from my shoulders, thoughts finally slowing down. I walked and walked, going deeper and deeper. Time passed unnoticed. I didn't think about turning back, didn't check my watch. I just walked, breathing in freedom. And then the sun began to set. At first, I didn't notice how quickly it was getting dark. The sky between the branches changed from blue to orange, then to red, and finally to violet. The shadows from the trees grew long, then merged completely with the darkness. And suddenly I realized I could no longer see the trail. I stopped, looked around. The trees all looked the same. Tall pines, dense undergrowth, moss on stones. Which way had I gone? Where had I come from? I tried to remember the turns, but my mind held only a blurred picture of the last hour's walk. There was no panic yet, just a light anxiety that began to crawl from my stomach to my chest. I pulled out my phone, battery almost dead, and of course no signal. I turned on the phone's flashlight, but the light was weak, barely penetrating a meter ahead. Good thing I'd brought a real flashlight. I always keep one in my backpack, a habit from those camping trips with my father. I pulled it out and pressed the button. A bright beam cut through the darkness, and I felt a little better. Just need to walk in one direction, I thought. The forest isn't infinite. Sooner or later, I'll reach a road, a village, something familiar. I started forward. For the first 20 minutes, I walked confidently. The flashlight beam illuminated tree trunks, stones, stumps. I navigated obstacles, tried to walk in a straight line, but the forest wouldn't allow it. Every time something blocked my path, a steep ravine, dense thorn bushes, a tangle of fallen trees. I zigzagged, trying to maintain a general direction north. Or was it south? I was no longer certain. Without stars, without landmarks, just darkness and trees. And then I saw the branch. A large, fallen pine lying across my path, half covered in moss. I circled around it to the right, memorizing the shape of the broken trunk. 10 minutes later, I saw it again. The same branch, the same moss. I stopped, feeling cold crawl up my spine. Impossible. I'd been walking straight. I couldn't have returned here. But the facts were undeniable. I was walking in circles. I changed direction sharply, turning at a right angle. Walked another 15 minutes, pushing through bushes, scratching my arms on branches. And again, the same fallen pine. Like a magnet, it pulled me back. Panic began to grow. My heart beat faster. Breathing became shallow. I forced myself to stop, take a deep breath. Calm down. Need to stay calm. Maybe this is a psychological trap. A known phenomenon: when a person gets lost in the forest, they unconsciously walk in circles because one leg takes a slightly longer step than the other. I just need to choose a landmark and walk straight toward it. I chose a tall pine in the distance, distinctive with a forked top. I aimed my flashlight at it and moved forward, not taking my eyes off it. But somehow the trees kept blocking my view. I walked around them, trying not to lose direction. But the pine kept disappearing and reappearing where it shouldn't be. And then I realized something terrible. I could no longer see that pine. Instead, there were only identical, faceless trunks all around. And then I heard it. First, it was barely audible. A rustle? A twig snapping? I stopped, listening. Silence. Only the sound of blood in my ears and my own breathing. I moved forward. And again, a sound behind me, like someone stepping on a dry twig. I spun around sharply, illuminating the space behind me with the flashlight. Nothing. Trees. Darkness between them, thick as velvet. "Who's there?" I called out, and my voice sounded strangely muffled. as if the forest had swallowed it. No answer. I told myself it was an animal. A fox. A rabbit. Maybe a deer. The forest has its own life. Many creatures move at night. But then why did I have goosebumps on my skin? Why was instinct screaming? Run? But I didn't run. Something deep inside told me that running would be worse. That if I ran, it would chase me. And it would be faster. I quickened my pace, walking as quietly as possible through leaves and branches. But each of my steps seemed loud, like a drumbeat. And after each of my steps, with a 1-second delay, I heard an echo. Another step. Not mine. I stopped abruptly. The sound stopped too, but not immediately, as if someone took one more step and only then froze. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst out. I stood motionless, holding my breath, and in that silence, I felt something eerie. Someone else was also holding their breath. Someone else was standing and waiting. Someone was playing the same game with me. I bent down, picked up a stone, and threw it sideways into the darkness. The stone hit a tree with a dull thud and fell into the leaves. Silence. And then the sound of footsteps. Not fast. Slow, measured. Someone was walking toward where the stone had fallen. I heard dry branches cracking under weight. Under the weight of what? For whom? Every fiber of my being screamed to run. But I didn't. I forced myself to walk. Steady, controlled steps. Because I knew that if I ran, it would know I was afraid. It would know I was prey. I walked, counting steps. 1, 2, 3. It helped me focus. Not think about what was behind me. Not listen to the steps that repeated my rhythm. But at count 32, I stopped. Between the trees, at the edge of the light, stood a figure. Motionless. Tall. The silhouette of a person, but something about the proportions was wrong. Arms too long. Head tilted at an unnatural angle. I froze. The light trembled in my hand. The figure didn't move. Who are you? My voice shook. No answer. I took a step to the side, walking around it. The light slid across the trunks, and when the beam illuminated that spot again, no one was there. I spun around sharply. Maybe it had circled around. Come up behind me? Nothing behind me. I turned in place, shining light in all directions, and suddenly saw. It was there. To the left. Between the trees. The same silhouette. Motionless. I aimed the light directly at it, and it vanished, like a shadow dispersed by the beam. I blinked. Maybe it was a trick of light and shadow? Maybe I was just seeing what wasn't there? But no, it had been there. I'd seen it, felt it. I wanted to run. God, how I wanted to run. But I forced myself to keep walking. Measured steps. Don't show fear. Don't show weakness. The forest around me was becoming denser. Trees stood closer to each other. Barely enough room to squeeze between them. Branches caught on my clothes, scratched my face, as if the forest itself was trying to stop me. And suddenly I emerged onto a path. A real path. Well-trodden, clear. My heart leaped with hope. A path. This meant people walked here. It led somewhere. To a village, to a road. I walked along the path, much easier than through the thickets. The flashlight beam illuminated the path ahead, and I saw it went straight, didn't wind around. But behind me, the footsteps continued. Now they weren't trying to hide. They were loud, distinct. It was following me. I wanted to run so badly. Every muscle screamed to sprint. But I kept walking. Steady pace. Don't panic. Don't run. The steps behind me matched my pace exactly. When I slowed down, they slowed down. When I sped up, they sped up. The path turned sharply to the right, and I saw a building. A small wooden cabin. Old, with a sagging roof. But it was shelter. Possibly a ranger's cabin. Maybe someone lived here. I walked to the door quickly, not running, but close, and pulled the handle. Locked. I knocked on the door. Open up. Please. Help. Nothing. Silence. The footsteps were approaching. Very close. I turned around, illuminating the path with my flashlight. Empty. But I could hear them. I could hear the steps. They stopped somewhere at the edge of the light. I knocked on the door again, desperately. Finally, something clicked, and the door gave way. I stepped inside quickly and slammed the door behind me. Inside it was dark and cold. It smelled of dust and mold. I shone the flashlight around one room, empty. A table, a bench, a stove in the corner. No signs of recent human presence. But it was shelter. Walls. A door. I pushed the bench against the door, barricading it. Went to the window, it was closed with wooden shutters nailed shut. I sat on the floor with my back to the wall, holding the flashlight in front of me, aimed at the door. Silence. I listened. No sounds from outside. As if the thing that had been following me had disappeared. Minutes dragged on. 5, 10, 20. Maybe it left. Maybe I was safe. And then I heard it. A step on the roof. A slow, careful step. Something was walking on the cabin's roof. I froze, head tilted up. The steps moved from one edge to the other, then stopped directly above me. Silence. And then scratching. Something was scraping at the wooden roof. Slowly, persistently, I stared upward, barely breathing. The wood creaked, bent inward. It was breaking through. No. 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 But I didn't run. Couldn't run. There was nowhere to go. Instead, I moved to the corner farthest from where the scratching was, pressed myself against the wall, and waited. The scratching continued. Methodical, patient, eternal. I don't know how long I sat there. Time lost meaning. The scratching would stop, and I'd think it was over. Then it would start again in a different spot. Testing. Searching for a weak point. I kept the flashlight aimed at the door, watching for any movement. My hands shook from exhaustion and fear, but I didn't let myself panic. Panic meant running, and running meant death. Then the scratching stopped completely. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. Slowly, carefully, I stood up. My legs were numb from sitting. I moved to the door, pressed my ear against it, listening. Nothing. Maybe it had given up. Maybe it realized it couldn't get in and left to find easier prey. I moved the bench aside, just a few inches, and pressed my eye to the crack. Darkness. Empty darkness. I opened the door wider, just enough to stick my head out and look around. The clearing around the cabin was empty. No figures. No sounds. Just the normal sounds of the forest at night. Distant owl hoots, rustling leaves. I stepped out slowly, flashlight sweeping the area. Nothing. Had I imagined it all? No. The footprints were still there in the dirt. Mine. And the others. The impossible ones. I started walking back toward the path, each step careful and measured. Don't run. Just walk. The path stretched ahead of me, darker now, the trees pressing in from both sides. But it was a path. It led somewhere. I just had to follow it. Behind me, I heard it again. That single footstep. Matkin mine. I kept walking. Didn't look back. Didn't speed up. Just walked. As if I were alone. As if nothing was following me. The path seemed endless. I walked for what felt like hours. My watch had stopped, the hands frozen at 11:47. Time itself seemed broken here. The footsteps behind me never stopped. Sometimes they were close, sometimes distant, but always there. A constant companion in the dark. I tried talking to myself, just to fill the silence. It's okay. Just keep walking. You'll find a road. Someone will come. It's going to be okay. But my voice sounded hollow, unconvincing even to myself. The trees began to change. They looked older, more twisted. The bark was covered in strange patterns that looked almost like letters, like writing in a language I couldn't read. Or maybe I was just seeing things. Maybe exhaustion was making me hallucinate. I passed a tree with a marking 3 scratches, deep gouges in the bark. Human height, as if someone had stood here and clawed at the tree with their fingernails. Or not fingernails, something else. Further along, I saw more markings. More trees scratched and gouged. And then I realized they were all on the right side. All at the same height, like someone had walked this path countless times, dragging their hand along the trees as they went. Someone tall. I moved to the left side of the path, as far from the marked trees as possible, and kept walking. The footsteps behind me grew closer. I could hear breathing now. Slow, raspy breathing. Not like an animal. Like a person who'd been running for a long time and couldn't quite catch their breath. But it wasn't running. Just walking. Always just walking. What do you want? I whispered, not turning around. The breathing stopped. Silence. Then, close enough that I could feel breath on the back of my neck. Walk. The voice was like gravel scraping against stone. Not human. Not quite. I kept walking. What else could I do? Good, it whispered. Keep walking. I could feel it right behind me now, close enough to touch. But I didn't turn around. Some instinct told me that turning around would be the end. That as long as I kept walking, kept moving forward, I was still playing the game. Still had a chance. Why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Because you entered. And now you walk. Everyone walks. Forever. I saw them then in the trees. Other figures. Standing motionless among the trunks. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. All facing the path. All watching me walk. Some looked recent, wearing modern clothes, their faces still somewhat recognizable. Others were ancient, little more than bones wrapped in rotting cloth. All of them had the same expression. Empty eyes, mouths open in silent screams. Were they real? Were warnings? Or what I would become? I won't run, I said. But I won't stop either. The thing behind me laughed. A sound like breaking glass. No one stops. Not really. Even when they think they've escaped, they're still walking. Still moving through my forest. Forever. This isn't your forest. Isn't it? Another laugh. How many times have you passed that same fallen tree? How many times have you circled back? You've been walking in my forest for much longer than you think. I looked ahead. The path curved around a large oak tree. Beyond it I saw light. Not moonlight. Not starlight. Artificial light. Street lights. A road. Go ahead, the voice whispered. Walk to your road. Drive home. Sleep in your bed. But you'll come back. They always come back. I walked toward the light. Steady steps. Not running. Not stopping. The figures in the trees turned to watch me pass. Their heads moved in perfect synchronization, like puppets on the same string. I reached the oak tree. The road was just beyond it. I could see a car passing, its headlights sweeping across the pavement. I took one more step and felt a hand on my shoulder. Long fingers, too many joints. Remember, the voice breathed into my ear. You can leave, but you'll always be walking, always followed, always mine. The hand released me. I stepped onto the road. Car stopped. An elderly man rolled down his window. You okay, son? You look like you've seen a ghost. I turned to look back at the forest. The trees stood peaceful and still. No figures, no paths, just normal woods in the darkness. I got lost, I said. I just got lost. He drove me home. I thanked him, went inside, locked every door, checked every window. I told myself it was over, that I'd simply gotten disoriented, panicked, hallucinated from exhaustion and fear. But that night, as I lay in bed, I heard it. Footsteps, outside my window. Slow, measured footsteps, walking past my house, back and forth, back and forth. I got up and looked outside. The street was empty, but in the morning I found them. Footprints in the soft dirt beneath my window. Bare feet, too long, too many toes. And I understood it had let me go, for now. But I was still walking, would always be walking, and it would always be one step behind, the one who follows, because some paths, once taken, can never truly be left behind.